We're now recording, and we're live.
All right, excellent. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another ONOS TST meeting. This is a public and recorded meeting. And we're going to continue in the line of a series of updates for µONOS. But before we do that, just a quick reminder that we actually have a classic ONOS release coming up at the end of this month. Last week, we just passed the feature freeze date. This beginning of this week, Ray cut an RC build for the 2.2, aka Sparrow, and so now it's in QA's hands. And over probably next 2 weeks or so, we'll go clean up the Git log, the review log, to make sure that the reviews that are pending that we want to go into 2.2 are merged, and so they have enough time for testing. And also, probably beginning of next week, we'll cut a support branch for ONOS 2.2, which means the master will again be open for development of new features in preparation for the release after that. So with that, let's segue into the µONOS update. And we have the agenda page. So there's a couple of, clearly the team is working feverishly towards making sure everything is buttoned up for the ONF Connect demo. And in process, we've established a number of separate repositories, because that's how we want to structure the code in the future. And even though we thought we would delay the separation of the CLI commands into their own repo, started to become quickly apparent that duplicating some of the boilerplate code in each of the repos was going to be a waste of time. So we set up a new, Jordan set up a framework, and he can maybe talk about that more, for having a common ONOS program, which is the CLI program, that houses the commands from various subsystems. And we've also reorganized the usage to follow the Kubernetes and other established conventions of kind of going with a verb first rather than with a noun first. You know, before we had something like ONOS devices list or ONOS devices add, and it just didn't read very nicely. It reads much nicely to be able to say ONOS get devices or ONOS add.
Guys, I'm not seeing these slides, by the way. Are there slides that just aren't?
I have something up, but it's entirely possible I didn't do it right. So give me a sec here. I'll bring up the GoToMeeting. And then what do? I do shares.
The play, just the play button.
Over here? Oh,
Sure.
that one. And then do share. And then
There we go. Thanks.
No. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So
no worries.
So the CLI has been consolidated, and now for right now we just have integrated a suite of commands from the topology, from the ZTP or Zero Touch Provisioning subsystem, and what's still pending is the set of commands for people to interact with a configuration subsystem. That there's a pending pull request for that. We also are now installing, as part of our default deployments, the ONOS CLI Docker, which means that all we need to do from outside of a Kubernetes cluster, we just need to SSH in and have access to all of the commands there. Clearly, the alternative is also to be able to use the client from outside of the cluster itself and use the existing ingress, gRPC ingress into the cluster to be able to interact with it. I think that's about it.
The ONOS CLI Docker container, is that just, it's a Docker container that automatically launches? Well, I guess it's a command line tool, so it just launches a shell and you execute the command line tool there?
Yeah, it just runs bash, and the command line tool is just installed there.
Yeah, it's installed there with all the command completions and everything else primed to be used.
Okay, so it's not like a completely enclosed CLI like we have today with ONOS when you SSH in. It just gives you a place to run commands. All right, thanks.
It's not a shell itself. It's basically just a command
Yep.
on a command line. Okay. So I think that's about it for the ONOS CLI. We don't have a demo at this point in time, but next time we'll give a demo of when we have all the other subsystems integrated nicely, where we can give more of a comprehensive demo. So that's it. Jordan, you want to talk about topology?
Yeah, so part of the rationale for moving the CLI was because we started doing work on Topo, and that was creating CLIs in a bunch of places. And so we did basically all the work needed on Topo to support devices. And so that involved implementing the gRPC API, implementing the stores, so it's now distributed, adding the CLI.
Sorry.
Adding the CLI. And then I experimented with a different code generator, and I'll actually do a demo of it here, called GoGo. So it's like a better protobuf gRPC code generator for Go. And then added some integration tests. So let me share my own screen.
I have to make you presenter, right?
Can you guys hear the construction?
We can feel it. Yeah, how do I get?
I can hear it a little bit every now and then. You hear the beep, beep, beep of something backing up.
Yeah. The banging, this thud that makes the whole building shake is the worst. Okay. So if I do.
This is my screen.
Oh. Sweet.
I didn't even have my. Actually, I'll push that up here. Yeah, so top level. Yeah, so as far as let me make this bigger. Wow, no, I think it's bigger. It's opening all the AD.
I think you need a few more windows there, Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah, so GoGo, the tool that I experimented with, the thing that's kind of cool about it is, so if you look at like the device profile, we have these fields like ID, things like that, where in Go, the convention is for that to be capitalized, capital I, capital D. And the default code generator for Go will generate capital I, lowercase d, and so it creates sort of out of convention Go code generation. And the other thing is, Sean was complaining. Oh, that thing's loud.
Yeah.
So Sean was complaining also that the generated like device type doesn't. We can't use custom types for the ID and things like that. And so I looked for a solution to that and found GoGo. So GoGo allows you to put like these tags on protobuf fields, and so this tag right here is saying generate a field, at least for Go code, that is correctly named and uses a custom type ID. And so I defined in device.go, you'll see a type ID, which is a string. And the Go code that's generated by GoGo is actually correct, and it has capital I, capital D, and uses this custom ID type, which makes for a lot nicer code, allows type checking on fields that want to be type checked and things like that. And the other thing that it does is the actual script that I use to generate the GoGo code, compile photos. It has a bunch of different versions of the compiler, and when you use this one, like GoGo Faster, it does the fastest version of its code generation, which means like the default Go code generator uses reflection for marshalling, and this one actually generates the Go code to do the marshalling without reflection. And so it results in a lot more generated code, but it's much faster. Yeah, much faster. Yeah. So I don't. I'll let. I think we should do the rest of the stuff and get to ONOS test and do a demo of the deployment before I show the operation.
Okay. All right. So we'll go back to me. Where did my... Sorry, I'm just incompetent at driving this thing.
I think you're in Chrome right now.
Yeah, where did it go? My Chrome disappeared. There it is. Sorry about that. Okay. So you're done with the slide? Okay.
Are you sharing the screen?
Probably not. Probably not. I don't know why.
So why that Windows
Yeah, it keeps hiding itself.
It's supposed to keep itself.
Yeah, always at the top.
Okay, here we go. We'll get it yet. All right, who was going to talk about this one? Was this going to be you? Oh, Jordan? Okay.
Yeah, sure. So in order to support changes to Topo, changes to CLI and everything, we've obviously done a lot of work on the test framework. So I don't remember when we moved the test framework.
9 days
Yeah,
ago. I checked the check-ins.
I guess a lot has
It's
happened.
just a reminder.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, I guess a lot has happened, but so we pulled so since we're doing multiple repos now, we pulled the test framework out of config where it was and moved it to its own repository on its test. And then started adding features for all the stuff that we're going to talk about. So added the ability to deploy ONOS Topo along with config, added deployment of ONOS GUI and all the features that are required to reach it. So that involves like an ingress and a bunch of proxies like we talked about last time. We're working on support for deploying arbitrary applications for the zero-touch provisioning app and things like that. And then we have an open PR for being able to access the CLI inside the cluster and things like that. So let me do a demo of this.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, hopefully this will work. We'll see. Let me show you what the cluster looks like. Let me set it up. So this is setting up the ON cluster.
Is this using Kind or are you using
This is
the actual?
using Kind, yeah. So we've tested all of this on a real bare metal Kubernetes cluster also. So it works very well across both.
Yeah.
Actually, I just started Kind, so it's going to pull images.
Okay.
Didn't take that long. Yeah, so it's starting the Topo nodes. We'll do that. We'll start the config nodes. Yeah, so if you see, as part of the Topo deployment, it started another pod, ONOS Topo Envoy. That's part of the GUI architecture that we talked about last time. And this portion, so it does that for basically each. Yes, so there's a config envoy and a Topo envoy, and then the setting up the GUI portion is setting up the Nginx node that it's this one, ONOS GUI. And then also there, it adds ingresses. So the ONOS ingress, this one is basically just used for gRPC traffic. The ONOS GUI ingress matches on when the host ONOS GUI is used, it routes the traffic to the ONOS GUI Nginx and lets it serve the static content, all that stuff. And then I don't have the CLI installed here, so I'm just going to run. Oh man, I have to pull that too. All right, so yeah, this is what the CLI pod looks like. So this is one that I just deployed, but this is how it's deployed also in Python. So all it has is the ONOS CLI basically installed. And the way that the ONOS CLI is structured is basically there are subcommands for each subsystem. So there's currently a topo command and a CTP command. And the way, I'll just show this real quick. The way that this is sort of architected is the CLI itself doesn't have very much stuff in it. There are only basically 3 Go files, and one of them is completion, the other one's output, and there's only one that actually does the commands. And so all that's in the ONOS CLI repo is a dependency on the other subsystems repositories, and it just pulls in their commands. And so if you go to like ONOS topo, and there will be a CLI package, and this actually is where all the commands related to topo are implemented. They're just pulled in by the CLI, and the CLI, all it does is aggregates all the different commands. So, like for topo, it has a bunch of device-related commands, and like Thomas was saying, they're structured more like English sentences, which is pretty much how the Kubernetes CLIs are structured. And actually, I was at GopherCon recently, and there was a good talk about by someone that works on the Kubernetes CLIs on the structuring of CLIs, and I thought it was a good talk, and so we implemented those practices. So just to demonstrate the topo API.
So if they're English structured, then you have like ONOS add X, ONOS add Y, and the add X and add Y might be implemented in different subsystems.
Yeah, so this was an exception to that rule that I made. I decided to still require the subsystem to be identified in the command. Like the command is ONOS topo get devices. So you at least understand which subsystem you're interacting with.
Okay.
Because I think it could be confusing otherwise when if you don't have some subsystem deployed and suddenly a command doesn't work, and you have some subsystem deployed and the command does work. I think it makes it just a little more clear. I think it's safe to break the rule just in that instance.
It gets a lot more complicated in the parse tree if you don't do that too.
Yeah. So this is using the topo service, and CLI. It's just making gRPC calls through the topo API, and you can add a device. I have no idea where there's 2 of them in there. But
so under topo add, are there multiple things you can add?
yes. Well, there will be. Currently, there's only a device, but I think that will be the case. And then you can do topo watch devices. So watch is kind of like what the other services like config will do via the topo API to listen for devices being created.
Is the watch like using a streaming gRPC? I mean, what's the advantage of doing a topo watch versus just using Linux watch around a topo get?
Well, it's using a stream, so that's polling versus the topo service pushing.
Yeah.
Basically, inside I think the state of this is messed up because I just started to run the time cluster, but when you do watch, which is basically a subscribe through the API, when one client adds a device to the topology, it gets put in the store. The topology service is also listening for events that indicate that a device was added to or removed from the store. When it gets one of those events, it sends it on all the streams that are open through the topo API. So.
Yeah, Jordan, just for this one, I saw in the code that your watch expires after 15 seconds, so I think that's what went down here.
Yeah, that's what's happening. But I pushed a bug fix for it, but I don't think the
not
image got
published.
updated yet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's about it.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. So I'm going to steal again. Go back here. Maybe. Come on. Jeepers. All right, Sean.
Okay, yeah, so I was going to talk about the ONOS GUI, and like Jordan said, the deployment of it is taken care of through Kind as it is. I was just going to run it locally to show some of the features of it that I really just haven't got around to deploying, configurations and devices and that kind of stuff to the GUI yet. So I think that was the first kind of note on it. So let me just share my screen here, Ray, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Let me see. So I just have to figure out where's my toolbar gone. Let's see. Yeah, so hopefully you can see this. The network changes was basically what I had the last day, and that basically brings up a list of configurations. And so what I've added in since then is I've added in a configurations screen, which basically these are basically all of the configured devices on the system. Not all of them have a network change yet. So the configuration is a little bit messed up at the moment. But these configurations, you can browse through those. What I added, as well as a models view, which allows you to see what are all the model plugins that are loaded. So, for instance, the Stratum model plugin is loaded. And you can see the list of Yang files in the Stratum model and their versions and all of this kind of thing. And then an analysis of the number of configurable attributes in Stratum and the number of state attributes. That actually isn't all the state attributes. That's all of the kind of paths, like for instance, to the state object. And beneath that, there might be several other attributes as well. So that's there for all of the different models. And I added the topology view, which should link into Jordan's ONOS topo now and basically retrieve devices from it. I don't have any configured here on my system yet, but that should be on the deployed node as it is. And then just wanted to go back to configurations again. So if you click on configuration, now it brings up this force graph of the configuration. So hopefully you can see this. So what I've done since the last day is I've added pan and zoom. So I can zoom in on that. There's still a lot of work to be done on it, but say for instance, like this is the root node, and this is like the core of the device. So we're looking at, whatever a device simulator. It has the ONOS or the open config models in it, and basically what it's doing is it's taking the configuration and basically just spreading it out over a tree view using, the force kind of the force field thing that was used in the ONOS topology previously. And
this is a visualization of the Yang model.
It is, well, of the actual configuration, so basically it's got the values in there. So I'm on the cusp of having the state as well. It's just not working for me at the moment, but basically it retrieves the state of the device from the operational state cache in ONOS config, and will overlay all of these objects with for instance, like under agent, there would be like a state box would appear, and all of its leaves and all of its values would appear here as well when you click on the state. There's really just a problem retrieving the state from the device at the moment.
So
and like
this is gonna sound critical. I'm sorry. It looks cool. How do we see an operator actually using this?
Yeah, so the way I see an operator using it is, say, take for instance this value here, you want to edit it, and you click on this plus is going to be changed to like a little pencil symbol. So basically, it's going to ask, do you want to make a new network change? And when you do, basically, it will display a pending layer here, and it will bring up a dialog box that will allow you to edit this attribute, and then you can go in and edit other attributes, and they're going to be added to your pending change, and then you can go back to other devices. So say for instance device
I
number
guess
2.
what my question is that visualization, how does that help an operator edit a configuration? Is that the visualization that they're going to use most? It seems, a traditional tree or some other visualization. It's very broad, very big diagram here. I know you have panels.
All right.
It seems
Yeah, I
cumbersome as a way
mean,
to edit the config.
I see. So I mean, we can have a tabular view of the editable parameters as well if people would rather see that. I mean, I think the reason I wanted a tree view is basically to show the hierarchy of it. I've tried fitting a hierarchy like this onto a page before, and it gets very cumbersome. Basically you have some things at like several depths. For instance, like these configuration attributes here are underneath connection, underneath connections, underneath controller, et cetera, open flow. And that's the nature of the Yang models. The Yang models aren't, I guess, designed to be, they weren't built with users in mind, I don't think, when they're so expensive and so broad. This is an attempt to do a graphical layout, but I mean, it is quite feasible to have a tabular layout of this if people would rather that as well. I mean, there are other models you could go for. You could, some people use a kind of a block diagram, of decreasing sizes of rectangles that allow you to visualize the thing as well. But is it that you don't think it's worth having a visualization of it, or what's your concern?
I think there could be a visualization of it. As I said, and you alluded to, this graph gets very large very quickly, and from an operator standpoint, I'm not sure if I was a network operator, this is going to be the most effective way for me to edit or view a configuration.
Yeah, I mean, there really hasn't been much, I suppose, consensus or even collaboration on the usability of this thing. And I'm wide open to suggestions, and very grateful to get any help people have on talking about the usability aspect of it.
I think clearly though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always been a fan of kind of the filtering, searching type of mechanism, right? I'm an operator. I know my devices. I know my models. I can almost tell you the path to what I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to type that out with completion or whatever to get me to what I need and filter down what I'm viewing based on that is going to be helpful. And
yeah,
often,
I wouldn't.
Maybe some work. Yeah.
No, I was going to say I wouldn't. I mean, I can see that there is a possibility of putting in a filter field here. Do you think that would be useful? For instance, like if I was able to type a path like, slash open flow, that it would like filter out everything that's not open flow, and then
I think
filter out to that extent.
I think a filter is going to be required anytime these models get big. Again, I'm not sure the force direct graph is again, from my perspective. Other people can be completely different on this. This is the way I'd want to do it, right? I'm thinking of, look, I've got a bunch of data and I'm essentially searching through it as Google, right? Show me all my devices were failure mode equals secure. That type of capability, right?
Yeah.
And visualize that,
okay.
and then be able to edit that or go into that. it might be worth it to do some paper usability, whiteboard usability sessions with people that are actually using this tool in production, whether from Comcast or whatever, to say, how are you using this how do you envision using this to edit devices? Or how are you doing it today, right? And even just put them down in front of ONOS today and say, go edit something, and kind of follow where they go and see where they struggle as they work through it.
Yeah, sorry, Thomas, go ahead.
Well, it's all right. I mean, my take on this is like with the old ONOS UI, right? We didn't really envision it to be used in production, really, ever. It was primarily used as a kind of a tool to visually support the concepts during presentations, during demonstrations. Even like in our production mixes, the operator doesn't really use the ONOS GUI other than for troubleshooting. Right? They don't use it for day-to-day operations. Usually, it's driven through the APIs, through some other front-end orchestration that then feeds via the ONOS APIs the information that ONOS needs. So I'm not. I think this is. I mean, I completely understand David's point. But I think this is just an experimentation in helping to visualize the structure and the depth of the tree and what the information is, and I think it will be invaluable tools on our show floor. And some operators may find it useful for production as well, I suppose. But frankly, almost any kind of UI, I don't really see in use in production. It's going to mostly be some high-level either interfaces or like orchestrators that are going to be holding the cards and then directing the output over. That's kind of how I look at it. So I'm really not terribly hung up on this. This is to me this is a canvas for experimentation and for interesting ways of viewing the information.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point, Thomas, but I think in various other things such as SIBA, I mean, there is a requirement for FCAPS capability, and I think configuration is the C, and there seems to be a need for direct editing, not just through orchestration of configuration, and I see the GUI having a role there in facilitating that editing. I know we as developers love CLIs, and a lot of technicians like to have CLIs for editing things, and we're all familiar with Cisco CLI. But I think maybe there is a role for a GUI there as an editor. I know in the ONOS Classic, it wasn't really an editing tool, and it was just a visualization tool. But I think there is a role for it as an editing tool, and I think it could be a key component in bringing that FCAPS facility.
And even if you look at this, Thomas, even if you look at it as a canvas, right? This canvas is going to be shown at demos, right? At conferences, that type of thing. If I'm an operator, even if I have my own UI, I'll be honest, I look at this like, yeah, it's cool, it looks cool, but again, cumbersome from an editive point of view. I'm trying to understand what added value I, as someone looking at this, is getting from a force-directed graph. And I'm not sure I'm getting the value that we might expect out of it. And so from a demo perspective, it causes problems, I would think.
Sorry, how does it cause problems?
If I'm a network operator and I'm coming to the ONF booth at ONF Connect or ONS, and I see this GUI and say, and you should demonstrate how you edit this to me, right away, I'll be honest, I know this sounds harsh, and I'm sorry. I'm never going to use this GUI. It's too cumbersome for me as a way to edit configuration. I may have my
and that's a decision. That's a decision you can make yourself. But why does it cause a problem?
Because to me, I'm looking at this thing, and you've got to show me. A visualization is supposed to bring out information in the data that in such a way that I couldn't get it through another visualization, or bring out something unique about the data.
Yeah. So when the state is shown here, David. it
Yeah.
will be visible in a way that's not visible any other way, right? So, I mean,
don't see
editing
any
is
other
one thing,
differentiation.
right? But state is another thing. I just don't have it ready today, but I don't think there's any other way of seeing the state in one at a glance view. You know, and also this will be driven live off updates in the device, and basically, you know, you can have flashing or sort of highlighted nodes here that show you what has changed in the past, you know, number of seconds. I think it does allow you to visualize things, but I really can't see why it's causing a problem for anyone.
Again, from my personal perspective, again, state's important. I don't see a tree, a force-directed tree, as the best visualization for configuration instance data, even with state. I don't know necessarily what it is. It's one of those things I can tell you what works for me, or I can tell you what doesn't work for me, but I can't necessarily say what is the perfect way, right? I don't know. I simply don't know. But if I was coming out
And
with a
everybody
look
will
at
have
this,
a different opinion. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I don't think there's any one GUI will suit everybody.
I think,
okay.
so I mean, point taken, but I remember this is just an experimentation at this point in time with different style visualization. It's Sean barely put, I mean, he's barely got started really, right? I mean, there will be much more fluidity to it, much more information, and then more features. And it's just one way of viewing the information. There may be other alternate ways that might be suitable to different people's tastes. So I wouldn't get terribly hung up on it. But at least that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay. No worries.
So Sean, you were saying that the state will be also displayed in addition to the configuration. It will be basically you'll be able to toggle it on and off, right?
Yes, exactly, Thomas. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Also, maybe just something that you probably already have that in mind is some sort of an indication where there is a disparity between the config and the state itself. Is that something that can be asserted visually somehow? For example, when you is that something that makes sense?
Yeah, I guess it does actually. Yeah, for a lot of the open config models, there's like a duplication of the attributes. Like say, for instance, there's a duplication of, we'll say, port, transport, address, priority in the state partition. So that would be down here, and yeah, there could be some highlighting of a disparity between the two equivalent trees.
Right, because usually they're subsets of each other, right? The config has less attributes than the state, because the state has usually a reflection of the ones that ought to be configured to indicate their actual state. Plus, in addition to it, has read-only type aspects.
Yeah.
Jordan also had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering. It seems like the fact that it's laid out horizontally instead of vertically is making it bigger, because the way the text flow is also horizontally. So I was wondering if vertically would.
Yeah, actually, I can do that, Jordan. I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, I think it's perfectly feasible to do it in a vertical layout as well. You mean the root at the top or the root at the bottom?
At the top,
yeah. Like a tree.
Yeah, or configurable, I guess. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, like the roots is.
Yeah. Not the
we want to bury it under the ground.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So that's really all I have on it. I mean, if we do need to do a tabular equivalent of this, I think we have the capability. We're fairly familiar with tabular layouts and paths written out literally, and the other kind of thing is, you can filter as you want here. For instance, I can do localhost, and it'll filter just the localhost ones, and a similar thing could be done with paths as well. If I was looking for a particular path and wanted to make an edit on one, for instance.
And I think the David's suggestion about the filter in that graph view would also be good. If there is a way to represent the graph.
Yeah, there absolutely is. Yeah. Yeah. Look, it's, as you say, it's experimental, and we'll keep improving. And it's obviously, fairly rough and ready at the moment, but we'll just make it more presentable as we move on. Okay, that's probably it for me.
This is great.
I think that was the last slide.
All right, so that's it then?
I think that's it for today.
Okay, so I think we're for the ONF Connect demo, we've actually secured a third device on one from EdgeCore. We'll have actually 3 devices, and we'll demonstrate some lightweight aspects of zero-touch provisioning by being able to add the device, and the device should get automatically configured with both the open config attributes through GNMI, as well as the pipelines should be able to get outfitted. Now for the control surface, we're going to be actually using the ONOS Classic, because we don't have that subsystem at all, even stubbed out actually in the µONOS yet. That's something that we'll get to after. So we'll be working on that. So I don't know whether or not in 2 weeks we'll have another one of these updates. We'll keep it up in the air. Is there any questions or suggestions? And now maybe one more ask for David. If you have, so we have some of your feedback kind of verbally, but if you have some thoughts, specific thoughts on how you think would be more effective way to visualize the configurations, if you don't mind jotting some of those down, just at least briefly, in the ONOS config design document, that would be great. It doesn't have to be a novel, just a couple of bullet points, a paragraph.
Is there a link to that document somewhere?
Yeah, it's in the µONOS folder, but it's
okay.
I can go into it.
So if you look on the ONOS TST wiki,
yep.
It's maybe not there.
I'll have to publicize it a little bit better where the folder is, but I'll send it to you. But in general, it should be under ONOS architecture µONOS and Google Drive.
Should we?
Okay.
Should we show the demo to the TSC and get feedback on it before we actually?
It's not a bad idea to do that if you're ready for it, but maybe not in 2 weeks, right?
No, probably not.
Maybe right in a month. And that will be just basically right before.
Yeah. I mean, at least some days before. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, do you want to take 5 minutes and just talk about what we think we're going to show? I don't know, have we done that? I don't think we've done that.
Let's do that next time.
Okay.
Let's do that next time. We do have the presentation and some thoughts on the demo written in both slide form and Google Doc form, so maybe we can cover that next time.
Okay.
We have ample time.
That's good. That'll be in 2 weeks then. We'll know a lot more then too.
Yeah. So let's plan on having a review meeting next week at least to kind of go over the paper variant of the demo and the demo flow.
All right. Sounds good.
That's a good idea. All right. Unless there's anything else, you can probably call it a day. Our building feels like it's falling apart here.
It's crazy.
My internal seismometer is going off all the time.
Oh, I know. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.
And I'm going to stop the recording now. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.